Hello, everyone, and welcome to In 15 with Rinchin, a show where top experts share their most practical advice in 15 minutes. My name is Rinchin, and I'm going to be your host. Today, we are honored to have Mark Burville joining us. Mark is a leadership and team coach. He's the mastermind behind Better Scrum and also the founder of Stay Amazing Consulting. Mark's coaching methods are nothing short of transformative. With over 3 decades of experience, Mark coaches individuals and Scrum team members towards their fullest potential. He is also a distinguished member coach of the ICF, and he brings a wealth of knowledge and a proven track record of success. Today, Mark and I will be talking about how Scrum Masters can enable their product owners and Scrum teams in performing with excellence. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right. Hi, Mark. Welcome to In 15 with Rinchin. Thank you for joining us today.
Rinchin, thank you so much for inviting me, for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation and sharing whatever I can about enabling with your viewers.
Awesome. Today, Mark is going to talk about enabling as a Scrum Master. And with his valuable experience, I'm sure there's a lot to learn for all of us. So, Mark, the floor is all yours. Let's get started.
Oh, right. Now let's get started. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is what is enabling. Um, in the definition in the dictionary, give someone the authority or to do something, make things possible. But I see enabling as an act of enablers, a person or thing that makes something possible. That's the definition of an enabler. I like to think of enablers as catalysts, being a catalyst. Enabling others maybe involves working together. I think so, because you can't enable others if you don't work with them. It could be a piece of work you're working on together. It could also be just for a short moment, like a conversation. Um, Working together involves alignment of thoughts. So not only with your own thoughts, it needs alignment with another person's thoughts, perspectives. I found that a lot of people prefer working alone. Why is that? Maybe people find it less demanding working alone. Maybe they get more satisfaction achieving the result alone. Maybe other reasons like being afraid of making errors. Maybe a parallel from my experience as a developer when I first tried to include people. Yes, it slowed me down. It required patience. It required belief in them and their ability. Why did we do it? Simply because everyone senior that did it. Everyone made themselves available to others. It was for the
Hmm.
greater good. We didn't have internet. We didn't have emails. We didn't even have a personal computer. Some did as their work depended on it. Right from my first days in software before anything called Agile, enabling was an expected part of our work. And enabling can come in different ways. Enabling to do and enabling to be. Some forms of enabling others to do stuff like teaching, facilitating, teamwork. And doing is where the learning is on knowledge work. It must be done. Other forms are about enabling people to stretch and grow, servant leadership. And my go-to forms with any other form of enabling is partnering, nudging, dancing in the moment. Being is where enabling takes momentum. Being nurtures the stretching, and the impossible becomes possible. Making things possible beyond the thing to do. My mum always told me if you believe in yourself, you can move mountains.
Absolutely. And I like when you talk about enabling being in the moment and dancing in the moment. Tell me a little more about it in your experience. How have you used that or enabled people by dancing in the moment?
Well, dancing in the moment is about actually listening to people, listening to their problems, listening to what challenges they're having, and actively listening. Because in if you don't listen with 100% focus on what they're sharing, you'll miss out actually what they're sharing, and you might not be able to help them. So
Hmm.
dancing in the moment is like a dance. Okay, it's listening to your partner, listening to the system, because we can talk about systems approach, listening to the system and listening for their nudges. And their
Yeah.
nudges, if you feel those nudges and you hear those nudges, then you can actually see what's really important to help them by enabling them.
Yeah.
Um,
Being present.
enabling needs respect and openness. It needs commitment, focus, and it needs courage. It needs trust. You cannot enable people if there's no trust. Maybe by focusing more on enabling others, working together can foster trust, strengthening respect and openness. These behaviors of people define our culture, or maybe it can be the other way around. Culture enables or disables the behaviors. It's circular. It's like a chicken and egg thing. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what started it. Behavior and culture either enable or disable each other. So
Yeah.
now you're all brilliant Scrum Masters and Agile coaches looking to enable those that you work with. Create the culture where the behaviors can flourish splendidly. A culture of trust, respect, openness, and courage. And for me, I'd start with commitment and focus, and you'll get amazing
Yeah.
results. We're all human, and we all want to grow. We all want to be valued for that. We all need to be seen, heard, respected, and understood. So values, behavior, trust, culture are all key elements to enable others and become a catalyst. And the real changer is when it comes from the heart, which I would say is authenticity.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So, when you talk about enabling as a scrum master, what has been what have been the most successful behaviors as a scrum master that you've seen in the organization which enables the teams?
Um, Organization as teams. I can talk about maybe what I haven't seen, what
Hmm.
I've seen that doesn't actually enable teams. Um, it's when the Scrum Master is held back. Maybe Maybe that's because the Scrum Master is young on his journey. And maybe those that actually are leading the adventure in the organization don't see that there is a possibility that this Scrum Master can enable the organization. And it's pretty much a bit of my actual history, that, in the sense that, just staying with the team and being a team member and being not seen as a leader. So, um, where behaviors actually make a difference for a Scrum Master, and it's been my experience, is when people see each other equally.
Hmm.
And they do
Yeah.
realize that the Scrum Master is a leader of change, enabling that
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
catalyst for that change. I can tell a little story about that. Maybe I'll start with the product owner.
Yeah. Absolutely. That would be great.
Because um, the product owner for me is really important in a team. Um, they say that the Scrum Master is a true leader, but
Yeah.
my view is that it's not just the Scrum Master. There's leaders everywhere, and the product owner, I'd like to enable him to become the leader of the value being delivered,
Yeah.
of helping to get those outcomes. And this is where the hardest work is. Do they see you as a leader,
Hmm.
or just as a Scrum Master on a team they're responsible for? Um, Sometimes they do. Um, so this is a challenge, how to enable them. You could walk into their office and ask them, how can you help them, the product
Yeah.
owner? And they may say, you can help me by helping the team. So maybe
Yeah.
the direct approach might not work.
Yeah.
I joined a company who needed a Scrum Master. Some leaders knew me through recommendations from others in the company. The ones who had worked briefly with me previously. I made it my mission to meet everyone where they are. I partnered with the
Yeah.
product owner, who was a product manager with 3 teams. His stakeholders were many, and so we made that transparent with a stakeholder mapping.
Hmm.
He wanted to create a roadmap, but the work was difficult to plan. It kept changing every week. I shared how empiricism relates to uncertainty, how the product goal can help. It was the first time he heard of the product goal. That's what he said. Um, from where from there we worked on the product goal canvas, engaging the stakeholders in its definition. Then we aligned a roadmap of upcoming major and important work contributing to the goal. We
Mm-hmm.
added some other major work that could not be excluded, even though it didn't contribute directly to that goal. And the
Yeah.
question was, how do we include this way of working with the team and the stakeholders? Stakeholder meetings, team events, everything was experimented differently from then on.
Hmm.
And what was helping me share my experience? Better Scrum. Going deeper
Hmm.
into the principles, the theories, the values, PSM3 stuff. Better Scrum is an enabler for Scrum teams and organizations that work with Scrum teams.
Absolutely.
And that led on to actually gaining trust with the product owner. I was actually going with him everywhere into these meetings with stakeholders, and I was seen as his partner, and that's what I wanted. So by being there, I was able to help him, and it's like 2 heads are better than 1. Because coming out of the meetings, we'd have some feedback with each other, and we'd talk to each other, and we'll actually make decisions together. And so I was enabling to help him to make decisions. And then that actually, what really helped me was actually being able to mentor people and share stories,
Hmm.
share experiences instead of just saying do this.
Yeah.
Okay, I did a stakeholder mapping with another team, and that enabled us to do this, and that enabled us to do that. But there was this that didn't work, that didn't work. If people understand actually the implications of what you've done in the past, then they can see whether it's actually useful in their
Yeah.
context.
Yeah. That's a very good point. How do you relate the theory to the actual experience and then use that as an evidence in the evidence based management as well?
Evidence-based management. Yes, goals,
We're,
empiricism,
yeah,
um, and evidence.
yeah.
It's just behind me, if you can see it. No, oh, you can't. It's blurred out.
We
Doesn't
can't,
matter.
but we know it's in the background.
So let's go back to the beginning of when I
Yeah.
arrived at this company, back to the leaders outside the team. I only knew a few names at first, so I invited one of them for a coffee break. This is what I
Hmm.
did when we sat down with the coffee in our hands. I presented myself. I asked her, "What about you?" At the end.
Yeah.
They did the same. At the end, we thanked each other for the coffee and wished each other a good day. The second day, about a day later, exactly the same with another leader. And the third went the same except for 2 things. One, he was smiling a bit more than the other two. It felt uncomfortable, so I tried to be briefer. He only
Yeah.
shared some brief stuff about himself, and that was fine by me. I
Mm.
didn't want to be intrusive. Then, after he had finished sharing, he asked me, "What is the purpose of this coffee?" He had a more serious
Yeah.
face on him at that point. I said,
Yeah.
"As you know, I am the Scrum Master for one of your teams you work with." He said, "Yes." I said, and I added, "I feel it is important that we know each other." I could see the
Yeah.
curiosity on his face.
Yeah.
And I went on, "That way, if the team encounters an impediment that they cannot resolve, maybe I will need some help. Maybe I will need your help. Would that be
Yeah.
possible?" And he said, "Of course, it's important to me that the team has no impediments." He was
Yeah.
smiling again. Um, from there, from there, over the next 3 months, he asked more help from me than I asked for help from him. He shared openly his expectations from me, and I always looked to
Yeah.
fulfill those expectations. Trust emerged,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I could start asking to understand his needs and start
Mm.
suggesting how I could respond to those needs because I was seen, heard, respected, and understood. Some months later, we were partners and I could help him unload a little bit of his work. And I was not alone helping him. Another Scrum Master was also helping together with me. And that Scrum
Yeah.
Master replaced him when he had to go on paternity leave. By
Mm.
working together, I contributed in a way, enabling him in his new role because I was there with him. I was
Yeah.
actually enabling him now. And that's not the biggest enabler that happened. But that may be for another day. So by meeting people where they are and actually
Yeah.
showing that you authentically want to actually help them achieve what they want to achieve can give you the opportunities to be able to cause change and enable people,
Yeah.
or the other way around, enable people and cause change.
Yeah. A lot of times people are a bit on the defense mode, and they don't want to really open up because of the previous experiences which may not have been great. So they're always, they have this wall around them. How can you enable and break that wall with the people when you're trying to build trust with them?
I mean, it's not an easy situation, obviously, and this is probably quite a challenging situation. And there is no, I would say, one way of fixing situations because that's what we don't want to do is fix
Yeah.
situations. And so I think from my experience, and I could talk about my experience where I actually screwed it up,
Yeah.
where I made a total mess of it. And
Yeah, we
that
can learn from
helps me.
failures.
You can learn from failures. And I think the failure, I'll just summarize it as ignoring it. Just
Oh
thinking it's
yes.
just going to go
Oh
away.
yes.
There's
Yeah.
loud voices in the team and there's quiet voices in the team, and you say, well, it's okay, that's fine, and ignore it, and then you sort of like actually get overwhelmed by it, and
Yeah.
in fact you become the problem.
Yeah.
So I can say that the first thing is that if people are not feeling comfortable, if you ignore it, it's going to become your problem.
Yeah. It's actually very true. I mean, we often talk about jargons and things which are more complex, but it's these basic things that really matter, right? Something like it's right in front of your eyes and you're ignoring it. That's your biggest point of failure at the time, right?
Mm. Well, one of the things that actually, one of the things is actually meeting people where they are.
Yeah,
And some people actually have frustrations, and you sometimes you don't actually get to be able to talk about those frustrations in a retrospective. It actually drags things down, and
yeah,
so people don't actually, like you say, they close up and they think, this is going to just actually create a bad situation in public. I'm not going to look good, and so they just close
yeah,
up. And so this is where actually I don't know of any other way to go about it, because I think that when we think of the system, if we nudge a system that we don't know enough about,
yeah,
then the effects can be actually dangerous. If you think that you can just say, "Hey, what does Jane think about this?" and Jane looks up and goes, "Huh? Why are you calling me out?" You
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
so one of the things that I learned on one of the training courses, which is a good approach, is actually not being direct on people. You have to
mm,
think of the team as a system. Okay.
yeah,
If two people are having a conversation and nobody else is contributing, then at the right moment, you can maybe interrupt that and say, "Hey, I think this conversation is really interesting. Um, it would be really nice actually if what does other people have to say about this? What
yeah,
anybody want to add? What do you think?" And it can actually maybe disrupt the conversation, so the tact will be needed,
yeah,
and so the right words. How will you actually bring up those words? So make sure that if you do intervene, that it doesn't actually interrupt people in their thought process,
yeah,
and make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. It could be because there's a conflict happening. So this is a really interesting problem that we have to solve. What do other things people think about this? And
yeah,
try and bring the system together, because that's the idea. And that was really useful. But if that doesn't isn't appropriate, then you need to meet people where they are. And I think you could do that as like a firefighter and say, okay, well, I need to go and speak to this person. But that's the problem.
yeah,
That's just like the leaders. Don't ask for the coffee chats when you have problems with them. Okay. Ask for the coffee chats when you want to meet them right at the beginning.
yeah,
And that way, when you do need them, at least they know who you are and they
yeah,
know why you've come.
yeah.
So, same
That's
with
a
the
very
people.
good point.
Meet the team. Now, there's one way that I did this. I've done this in two ways. Sometimes I met the teams individually, the individual people, because of the situation only allowed that. But there was another situation where I was left on the floor by the leader in front of the team, having been introduced to the team. And the leader said to me, "Mark, can I leave you with the team? I've got to go. I'll see you at 11 o'clock." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And so she went. I'd only said hello to the team. I was standing there. They were all sitting down, and I said, anyone for coffee?
Yeah,
I took the whole team. And I did exactly the same as what I did in the one-on-ones with the leaders and the people. I introduced myself. I tell a little bit about myself, not only professionally, but also personally. I do cricket and football and this, and I like this and do that. And I talk about my children. And then, but in a group, you don't need to say, "And you?" No,
yeah,
you just let the silence go. And what happened was that everybody took their turns. And the amazing thing was that when one person told about all their passions and their hobbies, another person went, "I didn't know you did that."
yeah, yeah.
So you create the space for the team. And so you need to take maybe a systems approach, because the emergent properties of that team only happens when you see it as a whole.
Absolutely. Enabling teams, enabling product owners, and enabling organizations by thinking of the entirety of it as a system. I think it's amazing, and the way you've described it really makes a lot of sense. You're not trying to solve a problem which is individual based or a particular leader based. It's about how does that impact the entire system, and how do we enable ensuring that the system is not disrupted by whatever we do or try to do within an organization.
So you can be heartless and just think about the system, okay, and only want to engage the system, but you need to notice those things that may
Yeah,
happen where you may have to have an individual conversation just to actually get a check feedback and find out what's happening to understand better. But if you can avoid that, then, you know, if you can make that transparent with the team, it's better because otherwise you're creating a dependency.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Was this in 15?
It was supposed to be, but the conversation is so interesting that we've gone a little over. But
Oh
while
dear.
we're there, but while we're there, do you have any closing remarks, Mark?
Closing remarks. Hmm.
Anything that you'd want to leave your audience with? A food for thought, maybe a question for introspection, anything like that.
Um, just going back to enabling, catalyst. Be the catalyst. Because if you can enable the being as well as the doing, that's where people will stretch.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to mull it over as we end our conversation. It was wonderful, as always, talking to you, interacting with you, Mike. Thank you again for joining in 15 with Rinchin. It was my pleasure hosting you.
Thank you, Rinchin. Thank you for inviting me. It was a real pleasure, and I hope your audience get a lot of value out of it.
I think that's undoubtedly going to happen. So thank you so much again, Mark.
Thank you, Rinchin. Bye bye.
Bye. That was great. It
Was it?
was so smooth. Yes, it was. It was so easily glided.